Chapter 523. Yun'er is now the little man of the family, and in the future, you still have to take care of your little sister. Quickly go back and sleep, study well, and come and see your little sister tomorrow. After speaking, Xiao Yi placed his son down. Xiao Yun nodded his head, then turned his head back to look at his father every 3 steps, then walked into the room. Looking at his son's little back, Xiao Yi felt that this was the last time he would see his son. Humans, when they do something wrong, they have to take responsibility. This is something that cannot be avoided. Even if they temporarily avoid it, it will still appear again in the future. It's not that I won't take revenge, it's just that it's not time yet. After taking a deep breath, Xiao Yi pushed open the door and walked into the bedroom. Looking at his wives, Yuqi was weakly lying on the bed, and Xuanhuan was hugging their newborn daughter. Xiao Yi let out a breath, then revealed a smile and laughed loudly. Let me take a look at our family's little princess. Xuanhuan carefully placed the baby in her embrace onto her husband's hands. Her face was filled with hesitation and confusion. Xiao Yi lowered his head and looked at his daughter. Her hands were moving back and forth, and her mouth was mumbling, looking exactly the same as when his son was born. Xiao Yi couldn't help but reveal a trace of a smile. Brother Xiao, give your daughter a name. Yuqi, who was lying on the bed, said weakly. Sweat had drenched her soft hair, making her look very delicate. Xiao Yi nodded his head, then said with a smile, let's call her Xianhuan. Xianhuan, Xuanhuan and Yuqi's beautiful faces were filled with despair. Although their husband did something that angered even the gods, but in the end he was still their husband. Xuanhuan, in the future the family will be relying on you. Xiao Yi said with a smile, then gently placed his daughter into his wife's embrace. Unexpectedly, his daughter grabbed onto his finger. Although she didn't use much strength, it was still a sign of something. At this moment, Xiao Yi's heart was collapsing. People only know how to cherish when they lose something. He had already lost Cindy, but he didn't understand the true meaning of it, and was walking step by step towards the abyss, unable to return. Lightly breaking away from his daughter's hand, Xuanhuan seemed to have felt that his father was about to leave him, and he immediately started crying. Looking at his life's loves, Xiao Yi's breathing became a bit hurried. Perhaps I should have died last time. Life, this is life. I'm sorry. Xiao Yi took one last deep look at his wives, carving their faces into every cell in his body. If there is a next life, I will live a good life with them, but in this life I will have to let them down. After saying this, Xiao Yi turned around and left, then set up a barrier. Brother Xiao. Xuanhuan and Yuqi screamed miserably. Yuqi even fell off the bed. She crawled to the door and knocked on the barrier. Xiao Yi stood at the door and gasped for breath. I didn't expect that this kind of farewell would be so painful. When did I become such a person to lose myself? After taking a few deep breaths, Xiao Yi walked downstairs to the garden. Xianxia said faintly, change to another place? Xiao Yi nodded. The two of them disappeared into the garden. Next to the window on the second floor, Xiao Yi's wives looked at their man's disappearing figure and cried. Next to a small window, Xiao Yun also looked at his father's disappearing figure and thought that his father had gone out to work again. He didn't know if he would come home tomorrow. Xianxia and Xiao Yi arrived at a desolate and uninhabited mountain area. The two of them stood opposite to each other. Xianxia's beautiful face was covered with a layer of frost, while Xiao Yi's gaze was calm, seemingly intending to resist. Come on. If you want to take my Xiao Yi's life, let's see if you have the strength to do so. Suddenly Xiao Yi let out a strong spiritual pressure. This spiritual pressure was even stronger than the previous Xiao Yi. The spiritual pressure engulfed the surrounding trees, causing them to start swaying crazily. Xianxia held onto Xuanhuan's sword and revealed a firm look. Xiao Yi, you only have yourself to blame for this. I Xiao Yi will never regret what I have done. Xiao Yi, who was in a frenzy, his aura rose by a bit, the muscles all over his body started bulging, and his huge fist started flickering with golden light. Soon after, Xiao Yi punched out. This punch burst out with an ear-piercing sonic boom. The aura was surging violently. Everything in the surroundings seemed to have frozen, becoming the embellishment of this punch. Xianxia's beautiful eyes narrowed, without a trace of pity. Xuanhuan's sword that was in her hand shone with golden light, immediately lighting up the darkness of the night. A strong sword chi suddenly emitted out, and Xuanhuan's sword fiercely stabbed out. An invisible sword chi that brought along a terrifying might struck towards Xiao Yi. Bang! At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. Xiao Yi's fist stopped in front of Xianxia. The autumn breeze was a bit cold, blowing on the two of them. Xiao Yi laughed and slowly stood up. Why didn't you dodge? Xianxia asked in a low voice. Xiao Yi didn't explain. He looked up at the starry sky, Qing, do the words you said before still count? Qingya nodded her head, the words she said before naturally count. I have a lot of enemies, now I just want to use my life to exchange for their safety, to live a peaceful life. If you knew this would happen, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. Qingya said slowly, this could be counted as Xiao Yi's last words before he died. Xiao Yi smiled faintly, this is the path I chose, a path I can't turn back on, I can't blame others. After hearing this, Qingya didn't say anything, the path is chosen by oneself, then one must bear the responsibility. I am a bit happy that you came and not others, Qing, there are still a lot of unknown things in this world, you have to be more careful in the future, the strength of that group of people is a lot stronger than me. When a person is about to die, his words are kind. Qingya nodded her head, she accepted Xiao Yi's kindness. Looking at his xuanhuan sword, Xiao Yi asked, can you let me use it again? Qingya didn't think too much, she threw the xuanhuan sword in her hand to Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi caught the sword in his hand and caressed the blade, feeling the call of an old friend and the apology. This sword has accompanied me for a long time, only now do I know that there are too many things I am unwilling to part with in this world. Xiao Yi took a deep breath, his gaze became lax, the palm on the blade of the sword began to gradually dissipate, turning into specks of starlight. Xiao Yi slowly closed his eyes, recalling the people he cherished in his mind, flashing through his mind again and again. Xeni, I'm sorry. I still couldn't do it. The xuanhuan sword fell to the ground, Xiao Yi's body turned into specks of starlight, and along with a light breeze he disappeared. The xuanhuan sword let out a whining sound, the light on the blade of the sword also dimmed. The tough king of a generation fell. No. The celestial emperor of a generation fell. It wasn't that he wasn't strong enough, it was that he offended someone he couldn't afford to offend. Qingya slowly let out a breath, stretched out her hand, and the xuanhuan sword on the ground fell into her hand, then disappeared. Brett easily broke through the barrier Xiao Yi had set up and then pushed open the door. Xuanhuan looked at this unfamiliar woman and protected Xuanhuan in his arms. Who are you? Xuanhuan asked coldly. Brett glanced at them and said indifferently, the person who will take you away. Hearing this, the few of them understood that their husbands would probably never come back. Looking at these crying women, Brett was a little impatient. There was not a single good man, they only knew how to make women cry. Hurry up. Those people are coming. Although Brett wasn't afraid, he didn't want to spoil his honor's plan. Xuanhuan was a rational woman. For the future generations of the Xiao family she had to leave. Zhang Xian hurriedly woke up Xiao Yun. Mom, where are we going? Xiao Yun rubbed his eyes and asked curiously. Xuanhuan didn't have time to explain. We're going out to play for a few days. But Yun, still has to go to school tomorrow. Xuanhuan squatted down and squeezed out a smile. Yun, don't worry. Mummy will apply for leave for you. Okay then, where's father? Xiao Yun looked around and noticed an unfamiliar woman. He sized her up curiously. She was really beautiful. Xuanhuan's heart sank. Dad is still working. He'll be here soon. And don't let Daddy be so busy with work. When Yun'er grows up she will help Daddy. Xuanhuan nodded. Daddy will be proud of Yun'er. Brett's face darkened. If you have anything to say, go over there and say it. Xuanhuan stood up, pulled Xiao Yun's hand and asked, where are we going? A place you have never been to, Brett said coldly. He looked at the women in the living room and spread his hands. A green light slowly wrapped around everyone, and then disappeared in an instant. However, less than a minute after Brett left, Wu Lu from the spacetime branch appeared at the scene. He was just sleeping when he heard the alarm. He saw that Xiao Yi was dead. He immediately lost his sleepiness and hurried over to check the situation. After all, Xiao Yi's strength was not bad. He was a very strong fighter and there was still some use in keeping him. Looking at the empty villa, Wu Lu frowned deeply. How did they all disappear in an instant? After checking, Wu Lu also left. He let out a deep sigh. Xiao Yi was probably killed by his enemies. Even his wife and children were not spared. How tragic. It seems that the employee's death allowance was saved. He didn't have any extra money to give out. Not long after Wu Lu left, another man arrived. He was none other than Heaven and Earth. Qing Tian walked in the living room and took out a tissue. He wiped his hands with a faint smile on his face. Sigh, what a pity. He was actually killed. Interesting. It seems that I need to recruit some talents. Qing Tian folded the tissue in his hand and placed it on the table. He slowly walked out of the door. No one knew what he was thinking, but it gave off a very strange feeling. On the other side, Brett brought Xiao Yi's family members to Blue Blaze Planet and directly went to look for Shi Tingting. This is his honor's territory. I have to ensure their safety. After all, there are my own people here, so I can be more at ease. If I throw them to some other place, it would be equivalent to letting them fend for themselves. Meanwhile, Xuanhuan and the others' vision turned black. Soon after, they felt as if they had arrived in a sci-fi world. When they raised their heads, there were actually two huge satellites in the sky. The satellites seemed as if they were going to fall at any moment. Shi Tingting hurriedly ran out of the villa and shouted out respectfully, "Lord Brett." Xuanhuan and the others couldn't react at all. This Brett was definitely called over by Xianxia. However, to have power in this unfamiliar place, just who is this Xianxia? And make arrangements for these people and ensure their safety, Brett said faintly. Shi Tingting naturally accepted the order unconditionally. "Lord Brett, be at ease, I will definitely make arrangements for them." Brett nodded his head, then disappeared from the spot. He came and left quickly. Shi Tingting still wanted to ask when his honor would come, but he didn't even give her a chance. Shi Tingting let out a deep sigh and looked at the women and children. Chapter 525. Xuanhuan and the others were completely shocked by what they saw. Their minds were in a daze and they did not even know what they were doing. They were being led like puppets. Xiao Yun, on the other hand, hid behind Xuanhuan and looked around curiously at this unfamiliar place. There was surprise in his eyes. He didn't know that his father and mother had left him forever. Perhaps he would only know all of this when he grew up. After Yi Hua, who was in deep sleep, received Brett's report, he didn't say anything and continued to hug onto Xianxia as he slept. The next day, the south was shaken once again. After the Tang family, the Xiao family's people all disappeared in a single night. A strange atmosphere pervaded the entire south, and there were even rumors that the group of people had appeared again. Some were even more ridiculous, saying that it was the revenge of the north. However, there are actually people who believe this kind of nonsense. Furthermore, everyone believed that it was done by Voidless Realm. Because Tang family and Xiao family were both families in the north in the past, Voidless Realm decided to make an example out of them. When some clan heads in the north found out about this, they immediately began to browse the forums, saying that the Empress had done well. This kind of trash should be killed and they, the people of the south, should have a taste of it. As some of the family heads in the north acknowledged it, the south had always thought that this was the Empress' display of power. After all, the south had also participated in forcing the Empress to distribute the longevity fruits in public. In order to show their power, they had done this. The first was to intimidate the south, and the second was to consolidate the position of the north. This Voidless Realm's Empress is so savage, using the lives of two families to do such a thing. But now the Empress was lying in her husband's arms, unhappy. "Yi Hua, I didn't do anything, why are those people targeting me?" Donghuang Baiji was very vexed. These people's imagination has already reached a terrifying level. However, when all of these things are linked together, Voidless Realm is indeed very suspicious. Yi Hua rubbed onto Donghuang Baiji's head. "That's because you are a woman, and you are a woman who doesn't have iron and blood methods. Is intimidation the only way?" Donghuang Baiji asked gravely. In Her Majesty's heart, if it was something that could be resolved peacefully, she would definitely not take action. And in Yi Hua's eyes, if it was something that could be resolved peacefully, he would definitely not take action peacefully. Yi Hua looked at Xianxia, who was calmly drinking her tea at the side, and said, "After being an empress for so long, do you still not know about this logic? The current Xianxia is much more powerful than you. Alright, you two can bully me then." Donghuang Baiji raised her hands and surrendered. Donghuang Baiji also knew what Xianxia went to do yesterday night. Doing something like this indeed required a lot of courage, but Xianxia still did it. Even Donghuang Baiji started to admire him. One must know that a few months ago, Xianxia was only a CEO, not a demoness who kills people without batting an eye. "Baiji, actually, you don't have to explain anything now. Just let them misunderstand. However, you still need to establish your authority." Yi Hua slowly stood up and sat beside Xianxia, while Xianxia took out a teacup and poured a cup of water for her husband. Her husband had given her an idea. The Empress was like a primary school student, sitting upright. "How should I establish my might?" "Let's establish our might through martial arts," Yi Hua said in a deep voice. "I am not going to participate in the martial arts competition. How am I going to establish my prestige?" Donghuang Baiji said confusedly. Xianxia said with a slight smile, "Baiji, to other people, taking down Voidless Realm is an extremely rare opportunity. Recently, the protests in the north are getting more and more intense, and it's not like there aren't any people who want you to step down from your position. You mean the 5 great clans? Do they dare? Donghuang Baiji's tone gradually changed. This is the empress that Yihua likes. These people, their hearts will be clouded by benefits. Taking a gamble, a bicycle will turn into a motorcycle, and they have the mentality of getting lucky. Yihua took a sip of Voidless Realms tea. This tea is rather tasty. Donghuang Baiji sneered, even if the 4 great clans join hands, they still won't be my Voidless Realms opponent. What if it's the entire north? Xianxia looked at Donghuang Baiji and asked. After hearing that, Donghuang Baiji's eyebrows wrinkled. Xianxia continued, perhaps they don't want to use martial arts to overthrow you, and perhaps they only want to use words to make you step down from your position. After all, this longevity fruit belongs to the north, and yet you allowed the south to participate in it. My dear Empress, what do you intend to do after being attacked by the entire north? Yihua laughed lightly. Right now, I am already cooperating with Xianxia, and I am still going to continue to lead the Empress astray. Donghuang Baiji remained silent for a long time, and in the end she shook her head, I don't know. Yihua and Xianxia smiled but didn't say anything. They looked just like a cunning couple, and Donghuang Baiji was just like that innocent little sheep that was scared silly. You two. Hurry up and say it, Donghuang Baiji pouted. These 2 actually dared to tease me, they are simply too evil. Yihua placed down the teacup in his hand, and his gaze flickered with a cold glint. Kill. Xianxia seemed to already know Yihua's answer as she sat at the side and drank her tea. Seems like after what happened yesterday, Xianxia seemed to have calmed down a lot. In the end, Donghuang Baiji was just an obedient girl. Ever since she inherited the throne, nothing big had happened to her, and she had only been training her empress aura every day. How could she have done anything like that? Hearing her husband's suggestion, Donghuang Baiji clearly became unnatural. Could it be that other than killing there is no other way? Xianxia, what do you think? Donghuang Baiji looked towards Xianxia, feeling that Xianxia should be able to give the best suggestion. Xianxia let out a breath, then looked at Donghuang Baiji. If they really want to rebel against you, you can only kill them. Unless you choose to step down from the throne and give up Voidless Realm to them. Yihua patted onto Xianxia's shoulder, expressing that he was very gratified. Our thoughts are finally on the same channel. Right now we are only lacking the Empress. If that's the case, wouldn't I have become the second Ji family? Donghuang Baiji couldn't help but say. Yihua placed Xianxia's slender hand onto his palm and played with it, then said faintly, Ji family kills people without a reason, and you, Donghuang Baiji, are facing a group of people who want you to step down from your position. There is no need for you to pity them. It is time for the world to know the weight of Voidless Realm. At the very least at this moment, Donghuang Baiji's bloodlust was ignited. Voidless Realm is just too low profile, and low profile makes people think that Voidless Realm is afraid of them. Seeing that Donghuang Baiji nodded her head, a trace of an evil smile appeared on the corner of Yihua's mouth. Alright, let's talk about proper business now. Yihua knocked on the table and his expression became serious. How could Xianxia not know what Yihua was talking about? What happened just now was just a small matter. What happened in bed with Yihua was a big matter. Seeing that her husband became serious, Donghuang Baiji became serious as well. Yihua, you speak. Alright, Xianxia has already deeply understood the responsibilities of a wife. Right now, as long as you, Baiji, nod your head, I won't have to run around on both sides anymore. Chapter 526. Xianxia spread out her hands helplessly, indicating that she was already convinced by Yihua. Donghuang Baiji didn't expect that Yihua would actually be able to convince Xianxia. In the past, the 2 of them were fighting together, but now, things are different. Her husband has already instigated one of his men to defect, and right now, she is the only one left to fight alone. There is basically no chance of winning at all, so I might as well just listen to Yihua. In any case, she had always been thinking that as a wife, she should still satisfy her husband's needs. However, Yihua, after this martial arts competition ends, I will promise you. The Empress slightly lowered her head and said softly. Yihua was overjoyed. Finally, my dream is going to come true, this feels great. Promise me what? Yihua looked at the Empress and asked seriously. Donghuang Baiji rolled her eyes at Yihua and said coquettishly, sleep together with you. After finished speaking, she ran out of the bar shyly. This caused Yihua to laugh out loud happily. Are you happy now? Xianxia rolled her eyes at her husband. Yihua's laughter could be counted with one hand, seems like he is really happy. Yihua hugged onto Xianxia. I am really too happy. You are still acting cool in front of your wife again? Xianxia poked onto Yi Hua's forehead, then conveniently lied into her husband's embrace. In this world, only the two of them dared to poke onto Yi Hua's forehead. In the next 2 months there will be endless surprises. Yi Hua kept away his smile and said faintly. Xianxia's beautiful eyes flickered with determination. Since I have already done it, then I will continue doing it. In the blink of an eye 1 month passed by. It was already the end of November, and there was only 1 month left until the martial arts competition. The protests in the north did not have any signs of weakening, and instead, it was becoming more and more intense. Yi Hua did not care about it and allowed them to create as much trouble as they want. The more trouble they create, the better. After all, I have to give others hope, right? And what made Yi Hua surprised was that recently Leisure Bar's business had picked up, and at night, the bar was actually still filled with people. This is simply unimaginable. After Yi Hua asked, he found out that it was all because of the blood demon. It must be said that the power of a handsome guy was still very big. Right now, not only was the blood demon a floor cleaner, he had also learned how to mix drinks. And this kind of handsome bartender cum hygienist became very popular in a short while. A lot of girls came to Leisure Bar out of admiration, and they even went on TikTok. Right now, Leisure Bar could be said to be a little popular. If those who came to Longan City for a vacation didn't come to Leisure Bar to look at the handsome guy, then they would really have come in vain. Right now, Blood Devil was doing very well. Aside from his lack of strength, he was no different from usual. It seemed that Blood Devil had chosen to specialize in other skills. He was truly a multifaceted talent. That afternoon, Yi Hua decided to hold a crayfish feast to repay all of his subordinates for their hard work. Within the lounge of Leisure Bar, the Green and Red brothers were currently setting up the tables. All of the tables were connected together, forming a rectangular shape. Meanwhile, the women were currently gathered together and whispering to each other. Even Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji had already blended into the conversation, and were currently discussing about cosmetics that they would not be using at all. This time there were 2 new faces. They were the Blood Tribe sisters. They had officially become LV Shu's girlfriends, and it was said that they were planning to get married. On the other hand, Brett seemed to be very unsociable. He was leaning against a corner and no one knew what he was thinking. Of course the men talked about the big things men should talk about. Lai Gu said gravely, "Zhu Tian, if you were to be a coward, you would be able to see the world." Wei Chang nodded his head. "That's right. Look at Brett, he is so pitiful." Yi Hua leaned against the bar counter and said faintly, "I feel that Blood Devil and Brett are quite compatible." Blood Devil, who was at the side, was startled, and he hurriedly kneeled down. "Thank you, Your Honor, for granting my wish." Hearing that, Zhu Tian's eyes immediately became filled with killing intent, scaring Blood Devil to the point that he was trembling. Yi Hua saw that and said faintly, "Zhu Tian, since you don't want to, then just let go and let Brett pursue his own happiness." "Your Honor's words are timely. Bestow Brett to this subordinate." Lai Gu was the first to shout out. Zhu Tian suddenly took a step forward. His meaning was very clear. "Try saying that again." "You are just standing in the latrine without taking a shit." Lai Gu was just joking. That Brett is basically not paying attention to me at all. Unknowingly, when Yi Zizi was standing behind Lai Gu, and upon hearing what Lai Gu said, she immediately shouted out towards Brett. "Oh Basin, Lai Gu said that you are a latrine." Lai Gu gnashed his teeth in anger. "This little loli is speaking nonsense again and affecting the friendship between us. Your Honor, give me a bit more time, I will definitely give you an explanation." Zhu Tian cupped his hands and shouted out lightly. "Alright, I will give you a bit more time. I hope that you can cherish this time." "Thank you, Your Honor." And when Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji saw Brett, who was hiding at the side, the two walked over and prepared to properly persuade Brett. Brett stood straight and shouted out respectfully, "Subordinate pays his respects to the 2 madams." The 2 women were speechless towards Yi Hua's nickname. To actually want his subordinate to call him Your Honor, he is too good at acting cool. In the future I will have to call him Act Tough King Yi. "Brett, let's sit down and have a chat." Without even thinking, Brett kneeled down and said respectfully, "Madams, subordinate knows the reason why you 2 came here. Subordinate will definitely not have any relations with Zhu Tian." Brett's firmness made Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji feel helpless. They basically don't know how to persuade Brett. "Brett, Zhu Tian actually came here to beg us before." Xianxia pulled Brett up and said attentively. Donghuang Baiji, who was at the side, went into a daze. When did he come here? However, very quickly, Donghuang Baiji understood Xianxia's intention. Brett lowered his head and remained silent. Xianxia continued, Although Zhu Tian lied to you and we deeply despise him for this, you need to know that his honor is also a swindler. The corner of Yi Hua's mouth, who was not far away, twitched. What Xianxia said is right. Brett, look at me. I was abandoned by Yi Hua for 3 years, and yet, didn't we still reconcile with each other? Although he is full of lies, I am still willing to believe in him. Donghuang Baiji comforted Brett. However, Yi Hua was very gloomy. You two actually brought me out to talk about this matter. Isn't this a bit too sloppy? That's right, Yi Hua also lied to us about many things, and we have also quarreled with each other before. However, it is precisely because of this that we cherish the present even more. When Xianxia thought back to the past, she truly sighed with emotion. Seeing that Brett's gaze was different, the two women stopped talking. Brett, think about it properly. In actuality, there are a lot of white lies. When Yi Hua heard what Xianxia said, he agreed with what Xianxia said. All of the white lies that I, the Supreme Overlord, have said are all white lies. Isn't it all because of you two foolish women? At the middle hall, Donghuang Li's petite figure was currently moving a chair that was even taller than herself. Chapter 527. Donghuang Li said with a look as if she was the boss. I am the boss of the buried love family, and you two are my left and right guards. How can you order the boss around? Yi Hong's mood was very good recently, and he said with a smile, it's precisely because you are the boss, you can just leave this kind of menial work to us left and right guards. Aya, Uncle Green, Uncle Red, you two are so long-winded, hurry up and move the food delivery is coming soon. Green and Red brothers felt helpless. Little Honor is still as cute as always. Following the departure of the two madams, the women began discussing about the deeper problems. This made Tang Wei and Sun Fang very gloomy, and they were unable to get a word in. Even Zishan was able to speak clearly and logically, and she had already left the group of living widows. Very quickly the crayfish delivery arrived. The women began getting busy, and the men took the lead and sat at the table. If a wife isn't used to do work, what's the point of having a wife? After the women placed all the food on the table, they slowly sat down. They were very orderly and very well behaved. This made Yi Hua feel very gratified. As expected of my subordinates, their position in the family should be very high. After pouring a cup of wine, Yi Hua stood up. Following that, everyone raised their cups and stood up as well. Any one of the men present would be able to overturn the seas and rivers. Other than the blood demon, any one of the women present would be incomparably beautiful. This was a table full of big shots, and Yi Hua was the big shot among the big shots. Everyone, you have worked hard. Yi Hua swept his gaze across everyone and shouted out gravely. Your Honor, you have worked hard. This group of people simply cooperated well with each other, and they shouted out their slogan very well. Yi Hua nodded his head. Let us shout out our slogan one more time. When this sentence came out, everyone became stupefied. When did we have a slogan? Why didn't we know about it at all? We didn't have a slogan in the past either. The blood demon immediately shouted out, Your honor shall live forever, unify the world. Everyone looked towards the blood demon. To be able to flatter to such an extent, this is also a skill. Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji were both amused by the blood demon. Is this the legendary blood demon that is going to bring disaster to the world? He is actually a bootlicker. Daddy is invincible. Donghuang Li raised her wine cup and shouted out. It seems like His Honor really knows how to speak. His Honor's words are simple and clear. These 3 words are enough to set off His Honor's greatness. Everyone shouted in unison, Papa is invincible. Then they drank it in one gulp. The corner of Yi Hua's mouth twitched slightly and Qin Yutang's face froze. Just now I wasn't deaf, right? Puff. Everyone realized that they had said the wrong thing just now, and they all spat it out. I, the Supreme Overlord, have actually taken in so many sons and daughters today. Yi Hua was having a headache. Why don't all of my subordinates bring their brains with them? Actually, at the start, Lai Gu was the one who shouted out, and the moment his voice carried a rhythm, everyone followed along and shouted out. In the end, he called out the wrong name. Ah. Everyone couldn't help but laugh out loud, and Yi Hua shook his head helplessly. The intelligence of my subordinates is worrying. Donghuang Li was simply about to burst into laughter. All right, sit down. Fortunately, there are no outsiders here. Yi Hua said faintly. You guys really know how to call Daddy. It's fine if you call me Daddy, but if you call someone else Daddy, then don't admit that you are my subordinate, right? You guys are too brainless. Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji laughed to the point that tears were coming out of their eyes. My husband's subordinates are truly amusing. However, the atmosphere at the start was rather good. Amidst laughter, everyone was eating crayfish. What was worth noting was that all of the women were peeling crayfish for their men. They were completely copying Yihua. This is why, like subordinates. Retch. Donghuang Baiji, who was peeling crayfish, suddenly let out a retch. Yihua wrinkled his brows and took a look, then asked with concern, "What's wrong?" "Oh, nothing much, I just feel a bit nauseous." Donghuang Baiji smiled, then continued peeling crayfish for her husband and child. However, not long after, Donghuang Baiji let out another retch, then hurriedly covered her retch and ran to the washroom at the back. Donghuang Baiji's actions caused all of the women present to think of something. After waiting for a long time, Donghuang Baiji walked back, and her complexion looked a bit lacking. "Baiji, you can't be pregnant, right?" Xianxia asked seriously. Yihua didn't react to what Donghuang Baiji meant. In actuality, Donghuang Baiji had a reaction for the past few days. She also knew that she was pregnant, and she wanted to give her husband a surprise. Donghuang Baiji revealed out a light smile, then stretched out her hand and rubbed onto her flat abdomen. "Yihua and I are going to have another child." After getting Donghuang Baiji's affirmation, everyone became stupefied. Soon after, everyone stood up, moved their chairs away, then half knelt down and shouted out, "Congratulations, Your Honor! Congratulations, Your Honor! Congratulations, you are going to have a child." Yihua felt that his brain was a bit unable to process what was going on. He looked at Donghuang Baiji stupidly, then looked at Donghuang Baiji's abdomen. A faint bloodline aura was being emitted out from Donghuang Baiji's abdomen. "Baiji, you are pregnant?" Yihua was extremely shocked. "This was too sudden, I wasn't prepared in the slightest." Towards the issue of having children, Yihua had always placed a lot of importance on it. He hoped that his bloodline would flourish, the more the better. Donghuang Baiji nodded her head happily, "And we are going to have our second child." "This is great." Yihua hugged onto Donghuang Baiji and started circling around excitedly. All of Yihua's subordinates were also happy for his honor. The more children his honor has, the more stable his power will be. "This is great, Ali will have 2 little brothers." Donghuang Li clapped her hands happily. "In the future, I will be the big sister and I will be able to bring my little brothers out to have fun." Xianxia was also happy for her husband. Back then, when Baiji gave birth to a child, Yihua wasn't by her side. This time, Yihua can finally be at ease to accompany Baiji. "Today, Your Honor is very happy. Give me another serving of crayfish." Everyone, Yihua held onto his 2 wives' hands and was very happy. They are the ones who have contributed greatly to the family. They are the ones who gave birth to my children and continued my bloodline. Right now, Yihua really wanted to celebrate with the world and let everyone feel the joy of his main body. In order to thank his 2 wives, Yihua unprecedentedly peeled crayfish for Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji to reward them. The crayfish feast ended in this kind of joyous atmosphere. On this night, for the first time, Yihua didn't make a move on Donghuang Baiji. He just hugged onto Donghuang Baiji and talked about some things that happened in the past. This kind of warmth made Donghuang Baiji feel happiness. "I'm finally pregnant with my second child." However, in the following month, Yihua found out that it wasn't a good thing for 2 women to get pregnant at the same time, because right now they couldn't even touch each other. Xianxia said that she was currently in the late stages of pregnancy, and thus she shouldn't do that anymore. On the other hand, Donghuang Baiji said that she had just gotten pregnant, and thus she shouldn't do any intense exercise. "I, the Supreme Overlord, just want to say, is my child that weak? Do you think that he will die just like that? What kind of twisted logic was that?" Chapter 528. As the organizer of this event, Voidless Realm leveled all of G Family's ruins and built a temporary residence at the side of G Family's ruins. Although the temporary residence wasn't a high-end 5-star hotel, the temporary residence was still a tavern. The temporary residence was built with wood, and most of the trees in the surroundings had already been chopped down. A large arena had been constructed in the center of the arena. It was at least the size of 4 basketball courts, and seats were arranged around the arena. Of course, the Empress would definitely be sitting in a different seat. She would be sitting on a separate platform, and there were also seats specially arranged for the winner. Although they were enemies, he still had to put on an act. He couldn't lose his magnanimity. Within Voidless Realm's Empress' personal bedroom, Yihua was currently leaning against a chair and silently smoking a cigarette while looking at the blue sky and white clouds. Of course, there was also the nagging of his 2 wives behind him. Although the martial arts competition had not yet begun, the people of the North and South had already fought a few times. Although there were no casualties, it was still unreasonable. You two should just speak less. It is extremely normal for men to fight each other. Yihua shook his head. To think that you two would want to interfere in this kind of matter, I really have to give it to you. Donghuang Baiji said tenderly, Yihua, go to the balcony and smoke, Xianxia and I are both pregnant. Alright, if the two of you get pregnant, you will be the boss. Yihua had already experienced it this month. Any random matter could involve the issue of the child. Furthermore, Xianxia should be giving birth in another 2 months, her stomach is already bulging out. Baiji, the 5 great families from the north and the 4 great families from the south have already arrived. Absolute Heaven is one of our own, so he is not counted. The people from the Ying family should also arrive today. Xianxia muttered. Even now, there are still people who are standing outside and holding up banners to protest, just who gave them the guts to do so. Donghuang Baiji rubbed onto her forehead. Southerners only want the longevity fruit, while the northern 4 influential families want the entire voidless realm. That's right. If we were to provoke a fight between the 2 sides, the situation would become even more out of control. Xianxia said faintly. Yihua couldn't help but say, the 2 of you are really stupid after being pregnant. Baiji, what you have to do right now is to watch the competition, then give out the rewards and wait for some people to jump out. In these few days, don't bother about anything, don't do anything. Yihua's suggestion is not bad, we will bide our time for the next few days. Xianxia felt that her husband's method was feasible. The reason why they were forcing the Empress like this was definitely because they wanted the Empress to step forward, but the Empress refused to step forward, causing them to be at their wits' end. That's the only way. Now that Donghuang Baiji had a child, she became even more careful. No matter what problem she had, she would always take the child into consideration. Thus, Donghuang Baiji couldn't be so carefree anymore. Yihua extinguished the cigarette but, Baiji, your current task is to let the competition continue as normal until the competition ends. As for the rest, leave it to me. And Yihua, it has been hard on you. Donghuang Baiji felt that if Yihua wasn't by her side, she would be at a loss. It's good that you know that it has been hard on me. I'll let you guys have your way again. After finished speaking, Yihua walked out of the room. Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji looked at each other and smiled. In actuality, it was rather interesting to see Yihua's distressed look. After arriving at another room, Yihua called Zhu Tian and Brett over. When the 2 of them appeared at the same time, Yihua could feel Brett's hostility, and Absolute Heaven's intention to reconcile with Brett. This Absolute Heaven, if he knew this would happen, why did he do it in the beginning? I called you here to ask about something. Brett and Absolute Heaven distanced themselves from each other, then half-kneeled onto the ground. Absolute Heaven was helpless as well, and thus half-kneeled onto the ground as well. Subordinate pays respect to your honor. Everyone get up. Yihua stretched out his hand and lightly waved. Brett, is there any movement from your side? Did they sneak into the competition? Yihua asked. Reporting to your honor, Qing Tian and the others did not make any movements. Brett's reply caused Yihua to be a bit disappointed. On the contrary, I was hoping that Qing Tian and the others would appear and capture all of them at once. After all, the martial arts competition this time around is an event that will shake the entire North and South. Don't they want to come over and fish up some benefits? Brett, continue to keep an eye on them. If there is any big movement, immediately report to me. Yes. Then, subordinate will take my leave. Yihua took a look at Absolute Heaven, seemingly wanting to say, don't you have anything to say? Such a good opportunity. Absolute Heaven understood what his honor meant and he said slowly, Brett. Absolute Heaven. His honor told you to come here to report your mission. Do not be rude in front of his honor. Brett shouted out gravely, not giving Absolute Heaven any face at all. Absolute Heaven was immediately left speechless. After doing such a shameful thing, I don't even have the confidence to speak anymore. Brett, you can leave first. Yihua waved his hand. Thank you, your honor. After finished speaking, Brett immediately disappeared. Yihua stood up, then said lightly, if I were you, I would have directly pushed Brett down just now. Your honor. Forget it, you have already become an indecisive and sickly cat. Tell me about the situation. What are those 4 aristocratic families planning to do? Absolute Heaven took a breath, adjusted his state of mind, then said respectfully, just like what your honor guessed, they are indeed planning to force the emperor to abdicate. Their guts sure are big. Yihua snorted coldly. The 4 aristocratic families are planning to use all of the powers in the north to force the emperor to abdicate. Subordinate believes that they will lose the competition this time around and hand over the greatest harvest to the southern aristocratic families, thereby infuriating the north. Yihua took out a stick of cigarette and lit it. This idea is not bad, this method is feasible. Your Honor, do you need subordinate to make any arrangements? Absolute Heaven asked. No need, you just need to do what you are supposed to do. The competition this time around is just a pretense, the process isn't important, the day when the competition ends will be the start of the show. Yihua really wanted that day to come sooner because some people were already impatient to die. Don't you know that my woman cannot be provoked? I was even able to exterminate such a huge heaven's mansion, let alone this small aristocratic family. Subordinate understands. Go. Yes. What Yihua was thinking about right now was how they would play their cards during the competition that would end a few days later, and how he should play his cards. Of course, he couldn't use a trump card right from the start, because that would be too damaging to other people's confidence. He had to make them mistakenly think that they would win, and only then would they find out that they were just a bunch of useless salted fish. Right now, all of the inns around Ji family were filled with people, and there was even a 38th parallel. The powers in the north and the powers in the south, whoever dares to cross the 38th parallel will immediately start fighting with each other. Qin Xuanzong, who was a demon emperor, was currently meeting with a woman, and the woman was Duan family's Empress Duan. Empress Duan, are you trying to drag me into a pit of fire? Qin Xuanzong looked at the woman in front of him. Although the woman was wearing a veil, Qin Xuanzong could still feel the cold aura coming from her. Chapter 529. Hearing Duan Ho's words, Qin Xuanzong laughed. Duan Ho, Qin Xuanzong, will become a family master sooner or later. There is no need for me to seek shortcuts. After laughing, Qin Xuanzong's face tensed up and said softly. Duan Ho frowned, and the face under the veil was a little moved. Qin Xuanzong, I saw that you have a bit of potential, that's why I came to invite you personally. Don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Duan Ho, I will tell you everything, I will not go against Voidless Realm. If anyone dares to disrespect Voidless Realm, don't blame me for being impolite. Qin Xuanzong wasn't someone to be trifled with. As a demon emperor, he had the dignity of a demon emperor. Knowing that Xianxia was with the empress, Qin Xuanzong naturally wouldn't help others to bully Xianxia or Voidless Realm which Xianxia was in. As long as Xianxia was in trouble, he, Qin Xuanzong, would rush over to save her even if he had to sacrifice his life. Good. Very good. After this matter is settled, no one will be able to save your Qin family. Duan Ho snorted coldly, then turned around and left. This Qin Xuanzong is truly a reckless youngster. He really thinks that he is a rookie and is starting to get arrogant. Qin Xuanzong didn't care about Duan Ho's threat at all and seemed very calm. After Duan Ho left, Qin Xuanzong stood up and looked towards the empress's bedroom. He wasn't looking at the empress but at the woman that he had always liked, Xianxia. Even if Xianxia is already pregnant with Long Outyan's child, I will not give up on Xianxia. I will use this life to protect Xianxia and not let her suffer any harm. No one is allowed to harm the woman that they like. In a row of inns in the south, in an unremarkable ordinary room, a youngster was currently sitting cross-legged on the bed. Both of his hands were placed on his knees and were emitting a faint golden light. After a long time, the youngster slowly opened his eyes and muttered, "Seems like I haven't swallowed enough, when will it end?" This youngster was Qi Shuwen, the student who saved the arowana. At that time he still had some thoughts about Tang Wei. However, after the banquet incident, he didn't have the face to pursue her anymore and focused on swallowing all kinds of fishes in the sea. Moreover, he was doing quite well now. In the entire South, he was considered one of the more outstanding rising stars. This time, he had come to participate in the martial arts competition to train himself. If he could obtain a longevity fruit, that would be the best thing. He had heard that the longevity fruit not only had the effect of extending one's lifespan, but it could also raise one's cultivation to the next level. Was a treasure. Otherwise, why would the entire South be so crazy about it? Dong dong dong. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Qi Shuwen smiled and went to open the door. "Brother Qi, how do you feel?" The man standing outside was about the same age as Qi Shuwen. He looked a little rough, with a square face and sideburns. However, when he smiled he gave off a very kind feeling. Qi Shuwen said with a laugh, "Comrade Xinba, are you teasing me again?" "Ah, Brother Qi really knows how to joke. How could I come here to tease you? I just came to see you." Xinba patted Qi Shuwen's shoulder and grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Qi Shuwen got to know Xinba at a banquet, and it might be because both of them didn't like that kind of scene, that's why they started chatting together. Furthermore, both of them were newly established families, so it would be good for them to take care of each other in an alliance. The two sat beside the round wooden table, and Xuanhuan poured a cup of water for Xianxia. Xianxia had a smile on his face, but in his mind he was having a conversation with an old grandpa. Could it be that this is the rumored old grandpa who always carries around with him? Indeed, this is the case. Even now, Xianxia's memory was still fresh in his mind. He spent 10 RMB to buy a jade pendant at the antique market, and suddenly one night the jade pendant shone brightly, and a person who called himself Crazy Grandpa appeared in his mind. Crazy Grandpa said that he would be able to turn Xianxia into an unparalleled expert, and after Xianxia became stronger, he would help Crazy Grandpa take revenge. This was simply like the plot of a novel, and Xianxia didn't even have time to react. After getting along with Crazy Grandpa for a few years, this Crazy Grandpa was no different from his own grandpa. Furthermore, with the help of Crazy Grandpa, Xianxia established his own family and became the family head. However, Crazy Grandpa said that this was just the beginning. Xianxia, you have to properly befriend this little brother in front of you. This person has the protection of a divine dragon, and in the future he will become a strong ally of yours. Crazy Grandpa said faintly in Xianxia's mind. Crazy Grandpa, even if you didn't say this, I would still befriend Xuanhuan. It isn't easy to befriend a good friend. Xianxia sighed. After establishing his own family, only then did he realize that if there wasn't any benefits involved, there wouldn't be any friends at all. Crazy Grandpa let out a sigh. Xianxia, no matter what you do, you have to be cautious. I have seen too many things like this. Crazy Grandpa, if I have to be cautious even when making friends, it would really be very tiring. Xianxia was relatively kind-hearted and pure, and this made Crazy Grandpa feel helpless. This kind of personality is really not easy to mingle with, and it is very easy to be cheated by others. Crazy Grandpa let out a sigh. Do as you wish. During the martial arts competition this time around, you have to be extra careful. I feel that the drunkard has ulterior motives and something big is going to happen. And I understand. Chapter 530. Xuanhuan smiled lightly and said, The Empress of the North is indeed extremely beautiful. I should take a good look at this kind of woman. Look at your disappointed tone. Wait for a few decades when we rise up. At that time, we will stand at the peak and look at the world. How great would that be? Desire appeared in Xianxia's eyes. He also wanted to obtain supreme power and make those people who looked down on him regret. Every man has ambition. If not, they wouldn't go and establish a family. Xianxia was like this, and Xuanhuan was even more so. Alright. This time, let's let the northerners see our strength. Xuanhuan's gaze became serious. It is time for me to display my strength in front of the world and let the entire cultivation world see. There is a small family in the south, and the family head is called Xuanhuan. Alright. Let's work hard together and create a new era. The two tightly held onto each other's hands and looked at each other. At this time there should be a BGM. Confirmed the look in their eyes. Right at this moment, a clamor sounded out from outside. Soon after, the two walked to the balcony outside, and a group of silver-armored warriors could be seen in the distance. They were holding onto a flag and a big ing word was printed on the flag. The uniform footsteps gradually became louder, giving off a strong aura. All of the family heads in the south looked at the ing family that was gradually walking over, and their eyes flickered with excitement. This is the big shot of the south, ing family. This is the first time that ing family has appeared in front of the public, and as expected, their aura is extraordinary. Xianxia looked at ing family that was not far away, and his expression became stiff. This is the big shot of the south, ing family? So impressive. That's right, even the guards around them might be stronger than us. Seeing such a scene, Xuanhuan immediately felt a sense of defeat, but at the same time, it also motivated him to move forward. One day, I will also be able to enjoy the admiration of everyone like this. Ing family's people quickly stepped into the housing area, and cheers immediately rang out. That excited look on their faces made it seem as if they had seen a strong backing. In actuality, the entire South's family head was becoming younger. After all, those old family heads had all died in G family, which caused the South's family head to become younger, and the overall strength of the South's family head was declining. However, these young family heads would also become the mainstay of the South in the near future. It was just that this matter needed time to be polished. That is Ing family's family head. Xianxia looked at the man who was riding on the beast and muttered, It should be. Qi Shuwen said blankly. The person riding on the flame cloud cheetah was none other than Jingshan. This time his son Kangsha came along as well, the man whose balls were stomped on by Qing Yutong and Yi Zizi, commonly known as the wick to extinguish. 4 figures instantly appeared in front of the Ying family's army. The 4 people who came were the heads of the 4 great families of the south. Wuxing Diaolang Hitian Murongji. We respectfully welcome the Ying clan's patriarch. The 4 of them knelt on one knee. As the heads of the aristocratic families knelt to welcome him, the other heads of the ordinary families also knelt to welcome him. Even Qi Shuwen and Xan Ba, who were standing on the balcony, did the same. After all, even the patriarchs of the aristocratic families had knelt down, so why wouldn't these little patriarchs kneel? He couldn't afford to wear the hat of disrespect. In the entire Ying family, only Jingshan was riding on a mutated beast. Seeing this scene, Kangsha, who was standing behind Jingshan, was secretly delighted. He hadn't been out for a long time and had gotten used to the servants' respect at home. Now that he had finally followed his father outside, he was able to enjoy a different kind of pleasure. Moreover, ever since the skeleton and the woman left, the entire Ying family had been reborn. It was no different from before. Now that I am here, I can finally see the Empress. In my heart, the Empress is my fiancée. You mortals probably don't know about this yet, right? If you knew, you would definitely be envious of me. Jingshan waved his hand, and a formless power lifted everyone up from the ground. This move of Jingshan shocked all of the small family heads present. What a powerful man. Xian Ba mumbled. Qi Shuwen said in shock, to be able to casually materialize spiritual energy, as expected of Ying family's patriarch. Jingshan's appearance greatly boosted the morale of all the powers in the south. After all, Voidless Realm's Empress was overseeing the north, and the south could only look forward to Jingshan's arrival. Furthermore, Jingshan was able to suppress all of the small family heads in an instant, causing them to worship Jingshan endlessly. Jingshan waved his hand, and the group walked towards the tallest tavern that was not far away from them. Although the tavern was the tallest, it was only 3 floors tall, and it was very different from the Empress's bedroom. Donghuang Baiji was doing this on purpose to make Ying family look bad. This woman is someone who holds grudges. Ying family's group stopped at the side of the tavern, and the guards sealed off the entire tavern from inside out. The entire tavern looked very formal and dignified, causing people to not dare to have any fanciful thoughts. Jingshan took a look at the tavern in front of him and didn't say anything. He didn't dare to have any requests either. In actuality, as long as there is a place to stay, it will be fine. As Jingshan and the 4 big family heads walked into the tavern, the surrounding small family heads began to clamor. This voidless realm is truly going too far. To actually arrange such a place for our big shots to stay, they are looking down on us too much. That's right, that Empress is staying in such a high-class place, and for Ying family to stay in such a place, they are truly hateful. What can we do about this? Voidless Realm is the organizer of this event, and Ying family is only here to cheer us on. This Voidless Realm is truly hateful. My Empress is definitely being held hostage. If not, she wouldn't do such a thing. That's right, the Empress is so beautiful, how could she possibly do such a thing? Hearing this group of people talking about his fiancée, Kangsha sneered in his heart. You bunch of trash, are you even qualified to talk about my fiancée behind my back? How reckless. Xen Ba, who was standing on the balcony, asked curiously, that young man should be Ying family's son, right? He looks quite good. Xen Ba didn't know how to describe it. Cold and gloomy, Qi Shuwen said lightly. Xen Ba immediately covered Qi Shuwen's mouth. Lower your voice. Don't let anyone hear it. Otherwise it's over. Qi Shuwen nodded. He didn't think too much just now and just said it casually. However, upon thinking of the consequences, Qi Shuwen's back felt a bit cold. I wonder what kind of crime it is to insult the son of Ying family. Looking at the arrogant look on Kangsha's face, Qi Shuwen said in a low voice, reincarnation is a skill. That's right, there are some people who are born with a golden stick in their mouth, and we have to go through unremitting hard work in order to be able to obtain the things that are within their reach. Xian Ba let out a sigh. I have trained bitterly in order to obtain my current situation, and other people, they really couldn't be compared. Qi Shuwen patted Xian Ba on the shoulder. Let's work hard, and maybe our children will enjoy the admiration of everyone. That's right. Work hard. After all, that is Voidless Realm we are talking about. How can it be so easy to topple Voidless Realm? Everyone nodded their heads. This giant's foundation was extremely huge. It wouldn't be easy to topple him. Let's get down to business. The martial sage heaved a sigh of relief, his expression heavy. Upon hearing the martial sage's words, the three family heads revealed nervous expressions. Martial Saint, are you sure that Ji family seal is an ancient divine artifact? Diao Lang asked gravely. The martial saint took a deep breath and said in a low voice, the three tycoons were appointed by the gods, and the three tycoons were protected by enchantments, and these enchantments were powerful ancient divine weapons. This isn't something that ancient divine weapons can compare to. After pausing for a moment, the martial saint continued, Ji family's enchantment is still here, which means that the ancient divine weapon is still at a certain place in Ji family. As long as we find the correct location, we will be able to take out the ancient divine weapon, and with the ancient divine weapon, we will be able to replace Ji family and become the new big power. Is what you said true? Diao Lang asked. If I didn't have a bit of confidence, I wouldn't have said it. After all, this is a huge matter, and it isn't something that a single person can do. This time, Voidless Realm opening the enchantment is an extremely rare opportunity. Greed flickered within the martial saint's eyes. Who doesn't want to become a big power? Especially after seeing Ying family's glory today, I yearn for it even more. Obtaining an ancient divine weapon will allow one to become an aristocratic family. And obtaining an ancient divine weapon, that would allow one to become a big power. He Tian laughed lightly. If the four of us obtain the ancient divine weapon, how are we going to split it? Split? Since our four clans have done such a thing, there is no need to talk about division. Only by the four of us as one will we be able to tide through this crisis together. After all, if we are together, we will have 4 ancient godly items, the martial sage said calmly. However, Murongji raised a question. If Voidless Realm and Ying family were to attack us at the same time, how are we supposed to deal with them? After all, Voidless Realm has a way to open this barrier. So we can only gamble that they won't do this. The martial sage swept his gaze over the three of them. Soon after, Yihua continued speaking. After this year's martial arts competition, whether or not Voidless Realm will still be a problem. That northern aristocratic family wishes for the Empress to be kicked off the stage, and if they succeed, what reason would Voidless Realm have to come and look for trouble with us? To think that the northern aristocratic family can open this barrier, that's more like a dream. Everyone nodded their heads upon hearing what Yihua said. Chapter 532. However, this ancient godly item was still of little value. It was not an attack-type item, but a support-type item. The martial saint summoned out his ancient godly item. This was a sharp arrow, and it was no different from an ordinary iron sword. It was able to confuse enemies, and no one would have expected that such a sharp arrow would be an ancient godly item. When the arrow appeared, the blue jade immediately emitted a faint glow, becoming weaker and stronger as it got closer. The martial sage put away his ancient godly item and said with a light smile, "Everyone saw it, right?" Everyone nodded. As long as they had this piece of blue jade, finding the ancient divine weapon shouldn't be a problem. He Tian suddenly asked, "Look, why is the blue jade still lit up?" Diao Lang didn't notice it at first, but after hearing He Tian's shout, he immediately looked at the blue jade in his hand. It was indeed emitting a faint blue light. What's going on? Diao Lang was confused. Murongji exclaimed, "Could it be nearby?" These words immediately made the few of them excited. Could it really be nearby? Wasn't it effortless to get it? Diao Lang was so excited that he stood up and looked at the blue jade in his hands. "Look, the light is getting brighter and brighter," He Tian exclaimed. His face was flushed red, showing just how excited he was. The blue jade in Diao Lang's hand grew brighter and brighter until it illuminated the entire hall. "Ah!" Diao Lang cried out in pain, and he immediately threw away the blue jade in his hand. His palm was actually injured by his own ancient godly item. That was impossible. This was not an attack-type ancient godly item at all. Just the light it emitted had actually burned his hand. "Diao Lang, what is going on?" Martial Sage hastily asked. He Tian and Murongji recovered from their excitement and stared at the floating blue jade. The blue light it was emitting was a little dazzling. "I also don't know, this has never happened before," Diao Lang exclaimed. Murongji muttered, "Just now, when this piece of blue jade faced the ancient godly item, it only emitted a faint light. But now it was so bright. This place should be where the ancient divine weapon is hidden." Diao Lang shook his head. "No. Even if it's an ancient divine artifact, it wouldn't light up like this. There should be something even more terrifying. Bang! A crisp sound suddenly rang out. The floating blue jade shattered just like that. The four of them were dumbfounded as they looked at the scattered fragments on the ground. This was an ancient godly item. How could it shatter so easily? Impossible. Especially Diao Lang, his face was filled with shock. This was his primordial godly item. Without the ancient godly item, he wouldn't be able to be the patriarch of an aristocratic family anymore. This wasn't a problem of finding the ancient god artifact, but of not being able to keep their position as aristocratic families. An existence that is even more terrifying. The martial saint said in a low voice, and his eyes were flickering with fanaticism. An existence that is even more terrifying than an ancient godly equipment. What would that be? The martial saint was not the only one who felt this way. He Tian and Murongji were the same. If they could get their hands on something even more powerful than an ancient divine weapon, the winner was nothing. What does voidless realm count as? And this thing was not far from them. This thought was true. The rings on Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji's hands, as well as the necklace on Donghuang Li's wrist. How could this primordial godly item withstand this kind of aura? It did not even last for a moment before it exploded. What do we do now? Is there any way to find the exact location of the primordial godly item? He Tian asked anxiously. He wished that he could obtain the primordial godly item right now and let Ying family and Voidless Realm take a look at it. The entire cultivation world will kneel down and tremble under my feet, ha ha ha. The martial saint said gravely, everyone try sensing it and see if it is useful or not. Only when one's strength reached a certain realm would one be able to sense the primordial godly item. We are still too weak, we are completely unable to sense anything at all, not even a single strand of hair. Diao Lang was in despair. This is the same as suffering a double loss. I didn't find the primordial godly item, I didn't find that terrifying thing, and my primordial godly item shattered, it was broken. Just like my heart, it shattered. Diao Lang sat on the wooden chair with a painful look on his face. A second ago he was still excited, but the next second he was crushed by the cruel reality. It's all your fault. After resting for a very long time, Diao Lang was still unable to take it anymore. Immediately he stood up and started cursing. He Tian and Murongji hurriedly said, we didn't ask you to take it out, the martial saint asked you to take it out. As expected, when something happens all kinds of excuses are made. Martial saint, compensate me. Diao Lang let out a shrill roar. This matter concerns the entire Diao family. If Ying family were to find out about this, the Diao family's title as an aristocratic family would be removed, and the Diao family would be reduced to a third-rate family. This was a fact that Diao Lang couldn't accept. However, why is his tone sounding like that of a 3-year-old child? It's as if someone broke his thing and then shouted for him to compensate, and the only thing missing was to call his parents over to help him. The martial saint didn't know how to reply to Diao Lang. Encountering something like this is indeed very hurtful. No matter how useless the primordial godly item is, it is still an primordial godly item, and it is one of the standards of an aristocratic family. Diao Lang calmed down. The martial saint could only calm Diao Lang down first, and not let him do anything extreme. If this matter were to be reported to Ying family, he would be done for. Diao Lang let out a wild laugh. Martial saint. How am I supposed to calm down? Right now, my primordial godly item is gone, not yours. If you have the guts, you can shatter it as well. Diao Lang, even if I wanted to, I wouldn't be able to shatter it. The martial saint sighed helplessly. However, what the martial saint said was too much of a blow to Diao Lang. Diao Lang was angered to the point that he directly punched out. Upon seeing that, He Tian and Murongji immediately pulled the furious Diao Lang away. It really isn't suitable for us to fight here, and Ying family is not far away from us. After all, it is normal for us to fight with the north, but for the south to have internal strife, and furthermore, it is an aristocratic family, it would be very shameful if word of it were to spread out. Diao Lang, don't get agitated. Only the three of us know about this matter, no one else knows about it. The martial saint immediately persuaded. Who knows what this Diao Lang would do if he is angered? Hearing what the martial saint said, Diao Lang calmed down a bit. As long as they don't say anything, no one else will know about this matter, and I am still one of the 4 aristocratic families in the south. However, the current Diao Lang was completely unaware that his weakness had already been found out by them, and in the future he might even be threatened by them. Seeing that Diao Lang calmed down a bit, He Tian and Murongji loosened their grip on Diao Lang. The martial saint let out a breath, then said gravely, "We have to find the primordial godly item, and we also have to find the primordial godly item that is even more powerful than the primordial godly item." "That's right, we only have 3 days left. We have to think of a way to find it." He Tian also wanted to obtain the primordial item that was even more powerful than the primordial godly item. Right now, what else could Diao Lang do? Chapter 533. Night fell. Qi Shuwen sat cross-legged on the bed and breathed deeply. After that he opened his eyes. Sighing, Qi Shuwen got up and poured himself a cup of water. After that he walked to the balcony. "The competition will begin tomorrow. I have to make thorough preparations." Just as Qi Shuwen was pondering, he suddenly saw 4 black figures scuttling out and flying towards the forest not far away. Four black figures to appear so late at night, Qi Shuwen was a little suspicious. After struggling in his heart, Qi Shuwen decided to follow them to see what was going on. Humans are curious and Qi Shuwen was no exception. Qi Shuwen sealed his aura and followed behind them. Because he did not know who they were, he was extremely careful. These 4 figures were the martial sage and the others. They had snuck out while everyone was asleep to search for the ancient god artifact. Even though they did not know where to start, they still wanted to get to the bottom of it. They were unwilling, especially Diao Lang, who was even more unwilling. The 4 people wearing black clothes landed on the ground. Diao Lang asked in a low voice, "How do we find it?" Martial sage summoned his ancient godly tool and said indifferently, "We can only try our luck. Let's hope that there is a reaction between ancient godly tools and ancient godly tools. Yitian Murongji, take out your ancient godly tools and try it out." The 2 of them nodded their heads and summoned their ancient godly tools at the same time. The jade flute in Hitian's hand was crystal clear. It should be a musical attack. In Murongji's hand was a long orange whip. There were tiny thorns on the whip. However, this whip was different from the others. It was a little thick. Coupled with the tiny thorns, it looked a little interesting. Qi Shuwen, who was hiding far away, was startled. Although the aura emitted by the weapon was weak, Qi Shuwen could still feel it. Is this an ancient godly tool? As expected, it is so powerful. These 4 should be the patriarchs of the 4 great families in the south. What are they doing in this dark forest instead of sleeping in the middle of the night? Let's take a look first. If they do something bad later on, I will have to kill them to silence them. 3 ancient godly tools floated in the air. Martial sage and the others carefully sensed the information transmitted by the ancient godly tools. Unfortunately, they did not discover anything. "Let's walk around and take a look," Martial sage said in a low voice. If this move was useless, they would not be able to find it. No one said anything. They could only try their luck. Qi Shuwen, who was at the back, followed them sneakily, and his heartbeat quickened a bit, thinking to himself that these 4 people might be looking for something. Something that the 4 great family patriarchs were searching for was definitely not something ordinary. However, on the treetop, there was a little cat squatting, its eyes emitting traces of cold light. Absolute Heaven was in charge of the security issue this time, ensuring that everything would end smoothly. After squatting for a few nights, there were no problems, but on this night there was still a problem. The people who came were from the 4 great aristocratic families of the south, and behind them was a sneaky little guy who seemed to be looking for something. Zhu Tian didn't report this matter to Yi Hua. After all, it was already very late, and his honor should have already gone to sleep. Furthermore, this matter wasn't a big deal. However, what made Zhu Tian curious was what they were looking for. They even used an ancient godly item to search for it. Interesting. Zhu Tian slowly closed his eyes, and his consciousness immediately enveloped the entire Ji family. Sure enough, there was a discovery. There was only one thing that wasn't in the house. From the looks of it, they should be looking for this item. Absolute Heaven's figure disappeared from the treetops, reappearing beneath a large tree. It should be hidden beneath this large tree. Zhu Tian raised his hand and looked at his claws, then lightly scratched the ground. Immediately, mud stuck onto his claws. Zhu Tian's cat face had a look of disgust, seemingly about to vomit. Using both of his claws, Zhu Tian immediately used the dog paddle style. Needless to say, his speed was quite fast. 100 meters underground, Zhu Tian finally obtained the ancient godly item. Zhu Tian immediately drilled out from the ground and stood on the treetop. Zhu Tian's spotlessly white fur was covered with mud, and his fur was black and yellow. Zhu Tian couldn't help but tremble, then looked towards the copper plate in his hand. This should be the item that is supporting the entire Ji family's barrier. However, this copper plate is a bit more powerful than the one in our hands. However, this copper plate is only used to set up a barrier, and has no other use. Suddenly, Zhu Tian seemed to have thought of something good, and he had no choice but to contact his honor. Yi Hua was currently lying down and sleeping. Just that, the person beside him wasn't his two wives but Dong Huangli. It wasn't easy for Dong Huangli to finally be able to sleep together with her father, and right now, Dong Huangli was lying on her father's chest and sleeping soundly. What's wrong? Yi Hua was woken up by Zhu Tian, and his tone was a bit unkind. Your Honor, subordinate has disturbed your Honor's rest. I hope that you can forgive me. You have already disturbed your Honor, just say it. Yi Hua slowly opened his eyes, then looked at his daughter who was lying on his chest and the saliva that was at the corner of Dong Huangli's mouth. Dong Huang Baiji didn't have the experience of drooling, so why did Ali have it? Who did she inherit it from? How can I possibly drool when I am sleeping? That is definitely impossible. Zhu Tian reported the matter to Yi Hua, and after listening to it, Yi Hua went into deep thought. They are looking for Ji family's barrier. What is it for? Your Honor, Voidless Realm and Ying family both have similar barriers. Based on this, wouldn't the person who obtains the barrier be able to become a big shot? Zhu Tian speculated. That is a bit possible. If an ancient godly item is the standard of an aristocratic family, then a barrier might be the standard of a big shot. Your Honor, the barrier is in my hands. How should I deal with it? Zhu Tian asked respectfully. Yi Hua went into deep thought for a while, then said coldly, this time I am afraid that half of the people in the north will be killed by Baiji, and the entire cultivation world will most likely fall into a depressed state. Since my initial goal has been achieved, it is time for me to nurture a new surprise. A new surprise? Zhu Tian didn't understand what his honor meant, and he was still a bit puzzled. That's right, didn't you say that there is a sneaky youngster behind you? Give it to him. After hearing what Yi Hua said, Zhu Tian immediately understood. Subordinate obeys. Also, in the future you can make your own decisions when it comes to matters like this. Don't disturb me at night. Yi Hua instructed gravely. Subordinates have to make their own decisions and shouldn't come and ask me about everything. Zhu Tian said guiltily, subordinate is foolish. You are foolish enough. Yi Hua said faintly, then cut off the connection. Zhu Tian knew what his honor meant by foolish. I am indeed foolish when it comes to Brett. Letting out a breath, Zhu Tian looked at the copper plate in his claw, then lightly rubbed the button on the copper plate. All of a sudden, the barrier that was enveloping Ji family's sky began disappearing, and the spiritual energy fluctuation caused by the barrier was a bit big. Chapter 534. Right now, Xuanhuan was also looking at the starry sky. That layer of blue barrier was currently slowly disintegrating, and it was very beautiful. At the same time that the barrier disappeared, it brought along a very strong spiritual pressure that shook the entire Ji family. A light sound rang out. Xuanhuan wrinkled his brows. Looking at the copper plate that suddenly appeared beside his feet, he picked it up curiously. After that, he did not stay any longer and returned. The commotion was too big, people will definitely come later. The martial sage and the others also realized this and returned reluctantly. At this moment, Dong Huang Baiji woke up from her sleep and flew towards the sky while wearing a set of pajamas. At the same time, Ying Jingshan and Ying Kangshi also flew towards the sky. Meanwhile, Yi Hua, who was currently holding on to his daughter who was currently rubbing her eyes, stood beside the window and looked at the few people in the sky. Your Majesty. With a smile on his face, Ying Jingshan cupped his hands as if he saw an old acquaintance. There was no blood feud between them at all. Ying Kangshi, who was at the back, gulped down his saliva. The Empress came out in a hurry, and she was only wearing a set of light silk pajamas. That arrogant figure of hers made everyone exclaim in admiration, especially that beautiful face of hers. It was truly indescribable. This woman was originally mine, and she was even going to have fun under my body. Just thinking about it makes me excited. The people from the north and south were all shaken and looked towards the sky. They felt that the broken barrier wasn't even as beautiful as the Empress. The Empress's figure was simply too beautiful. Just by taking a look at her figure, they already shamefully felt respect for her. Dong Huang Baiji responded, then no longer paid attention to Ying Jingshan. Your Majesty, I'm afraid that the barrier protecting Ji family has been taken away by someone. Ying Jingshan stood in the sky with his hands behind his back. He did not seem to be angry at all because he didn't dare to be angry. Dong Huang Baiji nodded her head. The barrier has been taken away by someone. I'm afraid that an incident is going to happen. This empty big shot position is something that everyone covets. However, I feel that this matter is nothing to be afraid of. What do you think, Your Majesty? Jingshan laughed lightly. He wasn't worried at all. With the Supreme Overlord backing him up, what is there to be afraid of about the barrier being stolen? Even if a deity descends to the mortal world, there is no need to be nervous at all. Donghuang Baiji snorted, of course. After saying so, she disappeared into the air. Everyone felt a wave of pity. They had already been here for a few days and it wasn't easy for them to see the Empress's figure, but it was gone in less than a minute. They still hadn't had their fill yet. Xianxia, who was at the back, seemed like he wanted to call out to Donghuang Baiji. However, he was interrupted by Jingshan's gaze. Xianxia felt that it was a mistake for me to call my son out this time. At home, my son had agreed to my son's request, but the moment I came here, my son changed his mind. What are you looking at? Go back. Jingshan shouted. Following the disappearance of the two giants, everyone began to discuss what was going on with the disappearing barrier. At this time, Qi Shuwen, who had rushed back, stood together with Xen Ba. They had just witnessed the Empress's figure together, and couldn't calm down for a long time. I really have to thank the barrier for breaking. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to see Her Majesty in her pajamas. She's really beautiful. She's so beautiful that I can't help but feel intoxicated. Xen Ba sighed again and again. Qi Shuwen, who was at the side, nodded his head, expressing his agreement. The Empress's figure was indeed incomparably beautiful, and that faintly discernible temperament was even more astonishing. This kind of woman could only be found in the heavens. No. Even in the heavens, this kind of woman wouldn't exist. Her beauty caused people to suffocate, and even their breathing became hurried. Xen Ba shook his head. It was better for him to not think about these unrealistic things. It would be fine as long as his eyes were satisfied. Brother Qi, where did you go earlier? I went to the toilet. Qi Shuwen said with a light smile. Sleep early, the martial arts competition will begin tomorrow. Good luck. And you too, good luck. The two of them walked towards their own room one after another. Qi Shuwen closed the door and even used his spiritual qi to reinforce the door. Soon after, Qi Shuwen took out the copper plate from his pocket. His gaze was filled with doubt. This thing is so strange. How did it end up beside my feet? Qi Shuwen held the copper plate in his hand and slowly inserted his spiritual qi into it. The moment he inserted his spiritual qi into the copper plate, Qi Shuwen felt a powerful pressure existing within the copper plate. In an instant he suffered from a backlash and spurted out a mouthful of blood. However, Qi Shuwen didn't go and treat his wound. Instead, he looked at the copper plate in his hand with an excited expression. Disbelief. This is simply even more powerful than the ancient godly item in those patriarchs' hands. What exactly is this thing? Could it be that the thing that they were looking for was coincidentally obtained by me? That is very likely to be the case. A great responsibility has been bestowed upon me by the heavens. I, Qi Shuwen, finally have a day where I can make a name for myself. Meow, a cat's cry gave Qi Shuwen a fright. He immediately kept the copper plate, then looked towards the roof beam. A cat with a strange fur color could be seen standing there. Qi Shuwen let out a breath of relief. I didn't expect that I would be frightened by a cat. This is truly embarrassing. Not paying any attention to the cat on the roof beam, Qi Shuwen took out the copper plate again and observed. Meanwhile, on the other side, the patriarchs of the South's 4 influential families all had miserable expressions on their faces. Especially Diao Lang, his final hope was shattered. Seems like someone snatched the ancient godly item before us. Martial Saint said gravely. Murongji nodded his head. That's right. If not, it is impossible for the barrier to disappear just like that. What a pity. In the end, someone snatched the ancient godly item before us. Right now, we should be the only ones who know about it. He Tian shouted out gravely. Suddenly, the three of them looked towards Diao Lang at the same time and thought of a very serious question. What if Diao Lang's ancient godly item didn't break, and it was just a facade that he intentionally broke? Then he secretly sent people to retrieve the ancient godly item, or perhaps even an even more terrifying existence. And all along he had been acting. What a vicious man. What are you all looking at me for? Diao Lang questioned coldly. Murongji's gaze locked onto Diao Lang as he questioned, Diao Lang, where is your ancient godly item? Murongji, what do you mean by this? Diao Lang shouted out angrily. You still have the cheek to say that? Wasn't it your own ancient godly item that broke? Murongji sneered. Diao Lang, it seems like the three of us have been deceived by you. Your ancient godly item didn't break at all, and then you secretly sent people to retrieve it while you were acting with us. Martial Saint and He Tian's gaze changed, and they even felt like they were going to make a move on Diao Lang. Snatching someone's treasure is equivalent to snatching someone's wife and daughter. After hearing what Murongji said, Diao Lang went into a daze for a moment. Soon after, Diao Lang laughed out loudly. "The three of you actually doubted me? Who am I supposed to look for when my ancient godly item broke?" Martial Saint's face was gloomy as he shouted out eerily, "Diao Lang, if you hand it over right now, we will let bygones be bygones. If you don't hand it over right now, don't blame us for being impolite." The jade flute in He Tian's hand had already appeared, and Martial Saint's iron arrow was floating beside He Tian's ear as well. Chapter 535. Diao Lang. You are still acting. Only the four of us know about this. Why did the barrier disappear when we went out to look for it? It is obvious that you are afraid that we have other methods, so you attacked first to gain the upper hand. The Martial Saint's words received the agreement of the other two because it is too coincidental. The barrier disappeared just when they went out to look for it. I really don't have it. Diao Lang looked at the three of them with a pleading gaze. All of them have ancient godly items. If they attack him together, he will definitely die on the spot. He Tian persuaded, "Diao Lang, if you take it out now, we can still let bygones be bygones." "That's right. Take it out now. Take it out." Diao Lang's eyes were bloodshot as he roared, "I really don't have it." The Martial Saint's gaze became serious. "Looks like you are forcing us to use force." Seeing that the Martial Saint was about to make a move, Diao Lang was startled. There is no chance of winning at all. Right now, only by running out will he have a chance of survival. Diao Lang did not think anymore and turned around to run. "Trying to run?" the Martial Saint shouted coldly. The iron arrow floating in the air turned into a black light and attacked according to the Martial Saint's order. A sharp blade appeared in Diao Lang's hand as he turned around to run and blocked the arrow. Clang! The sharp blade in Diao Lang's hand was broken. However, he managed to block the attack and caused the iron arrow to deviate. The iron arrow flew past his face. However, the iron arrow turned around and launched a second attack. Diao Lang had already touched the wooden door and was just a tiny bit away from opening it. However, his leg was entangled. The yellow long whip in Murongji's hand was like a huge python as it entangled Diao Lang's leg. The thick and big whip head was like the head of a snake as it swayed. With a fling of his hand, Diao Lang's body fell in the middle of the room. "Run!" the Martial Saint shouted angrily. Right now, the three of them can conclude that it was this Diao Lang who sent people to take it. Otherwise, why would he be in such a hurry to run? The three of them surrounded Diao Lang and their killing intent surged. Diao Lang could feel the murderous aura from the three of them. There was no point in trying to explain himself now. The only thing he could do was to ask for help. Just as Diao Lang was about to open his mouth and shout for help, Murongji's whip head directly drilled into Diao Lang's mouth. The thick and big whip head filled Diao Lang's mouth to the brim, and the whip itself had thorns. Diao Lang's mouth was immediately severely damaged, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. The three of them looked at each other. This person definitely couldn't be left alive, because he knew too many secrets. After killing him, they would capture his clansmen and interrogate them one by one. With this plan, the Martial Saint did not show any mercy and controlled his ancient godly item. The iron arrow pierced through the air and pierced through Diao Lang's head before returning to his hand. Diao Lang could only feel the back of his head lighting up and then he felt dizzy. "These three bastards, even if I become a ghost, I won't let you off." Diao Lang fell to the ground. There was a bloody hole on his forehead and blood was flowing out of it. His eyes were wide open in death. "His corpse must be found," the Martial Saint said calmly. Murongji nodded his head. "That's right, his subordinates are definitely panicking right now. Then, we have to send people to keep an eye on his subordinates and see which one of them is acting strangely." The three of them nodded their heads and came to a consensus. Meanwhile, this Diao Lang could be said to have died unjustly. His ancient godly item was broken and then he was suspected by three fools and the three fools even killed him. Diao family, one of the four great families in the south, died and the cause of death, died unjustly. Meanwhile, outside, everyone was still in a state of excitement. They were excited because they saw the Empress's figure, and they didn't feel anything about the barrier suddenly disappearing. What does it have to do with us? Dawn dispelled the darkness of night, ushering in a brand new day. This day was also the first day of the martial arts competition. However, in the morning, Donghuang Baiji received a piece of bad news. Diao family, one of the 4 great families in the south, died miserably in a small forest. Baiji, do you want me to go with you? Xianxia asked with concern. Donghuang Baiji was already dressed neatly and she shook her head. No need, Xianxia, the most important thing right now is for you to properly take care of your pregnancy. In actuality, it is best for you to stay in Voidless Realm. I have Yihua with me. I am worried too, Xianxia said with a gentle smile as she rubbed onto her big belly with both of her hands. I am looking forward to the arrival of my son. Who does my son look like? I heard that my son will look like my mother. That means that my son will definitely be a handsome boy. Right now, Yihua had become a stay-at-home father, and he was accompanying his daughter every single day. Dong Huangli was also very happy. I finally managed to snatch daddy over from mommy. Yihua, I am going out. Dong Huang Baiji greeted her husband. Yihua nodded his head, and only then did Dong Huang Baiji dare to walk out of the house. When the Empress walked out of the house, Voidless Realms guards were all around the house. Meanwhile, Dong Huang Baiji sat on top of the imperial palanquin, displaying the demeanor of an empress. When the imperial palanquin passed by the streets in the north, the family heads only stretched their heads out to take a look. There was no cheering at all, and even the family heads of influential families did not come. From this, it could be seen that the current Voidless Realm had already been isolated by all of the powers in the north. However, when the Empress really appeared, they no longer dared to continue clamoring. Dong Huang Baiji sat inside the imperial palanquin with her beautiful eyes closed. Perhaps I really have to do as Yihua said. I have to use my iron fist to suppress everyone. When the imperial palanquin arrived at the streets in the south, cheers could be heard. When the imperial palanquin saw that the Empress had come over, they were simply too excited, as if the Empress was their big shot. As the organizer of the event this time, when such a murder happened, Dong Huang Baiji had to come over and take a look. As expected of the Empress, this imperial palanquin is not an ordinary one. I can faintly feel that it is a spirit artifact. That's right. However, our big shot is also riding on a spirit beast and they are more or less of the same level. But why do I feel that the Empress is even more awesome? Hehe, you must be thinking that the Empress is more awesome, right? Everyone was discussing about the Empress, and some of them even tailed behind the imperial palanquin. When I get a closer look at the Empress, my life will be worth it. The imperial palanquin arrived at Ying family's residence and stopped. Under the service of a maid, Dong Huang Baiji appeared in front of everyone. Everyone held their breath as they looked at Voidless Realm's Empress, who was wearing a purple gown and a golden crown. The Empress is so imposing. Every single movement of hers is so charming, and even the movement of her hand is so perfect. Furthermore, when the Empress raised her foot and stepped on the ground, it seemed like she was itching to get rid of the dust on the ground and let the Empress step on her own body. That mysterious back view and that fair and jade-like neck really caused all of the male compatriots to stand up straight. Why did the heavens create such a woman, and furthermore, it is a woman that we are unable to obtain. Isn't this the same as suffocating us to death? As the Empress walked into the residence, everyone became disappointed. Chapter 536. The Empress's guards immediately looked towards the source of the voice. They actually dared to be so disrespectful towards the Empress. Soon after, more people started shouting and more people started shouting at the same time. Dong Huang Baiji, who was inside the room, was able to hear the voice. They are really not afraid of me, they lack dignity. The shouts outside didn't seem to have any intention of stopping, and it seemed like they were mocking the Empress. Even Xuanhuan and Xuanba were shouting along with the shouts. Quiet. A cold shout immediately burst out from inside the room. This was not what Dong Huang Baiji said, but what Ying Jingshan shouted. A bunch of people who are not afraid of death actually dared to mock the wife of the Supreme Overlord. Are they tired of living? Following Ying Jingshan's shout, the outside indeed became quiet. Dong Huang Baiji sighed in her heart. A woman without deterrence who would be afraid of her. In everyone's eyes, I am a philanthropist, the kind of person who is easy to talk to, which is why I dared to mock her like this. Look at Ying Jingshan, do they dare to do this? They clearly don't dare to do this. Therefore what Yihua said is correct, I need a bloodbath to establish my might. I'm actually not that easy to talk to. Dong Huang Baiji looked at the corpse that was placed in the center of the room and asked faintly, what happened? With an outsider present, Ying Jingshan naturally wouldn't be too low-key. He indifferently said, Empress, this Diao Lang was discovered in the forest today. The wound on his forehead is fatal, and his oral cavity has also suffered a serious injury. His oral cavity is severely injured? That sounds really strange. Do you have any suspects? Donghuang Baiji asked. The martial saint who was at the side cupped his hands and said, Empress, the barrier suddenly disappeared last night. I'm afraid that a powerful enemy appeared. Donghuang Baiji sized up Diao Lang's body, then said slowly, This person's clothes are clean, and there isn't a single wound on his body. I'm afraid that he was ambushed by someone or someone familiar with him. Furthermore, to be able to ambush an aristocratic family's family master, his strength cannot be underestimated. The hearts of the three sunk. This empress's thoughts are so meticulous, it is truly scary. Donghuang Baiji was a woman who accompanied Yi Hua to watch Detective Conan, and right now she had a slight understanding of the situation. Jingshan said, Empress, I suggest to strengthen the security to prevent similar things from happening. That's fine. This is the internal affairs of the South. This emperor will not interfere. Do as you see fit. Donghuang Baiji said faintly. After that, she walked out of the tavern, sat on the imperial palanquin, and walked towards the martial arts stage. Because the opening ceremony was about to begin. Looking at the empress leaving, Jingshan said gravely, The three of you investigate this matter thoroughly. Yes. The three of them answered in unison. When Kangshi, who was standing at the side, saw the front of Her Majesty, he felt that it was really great. In his mind, he had already started to imagine the scene where Her Majesty would be tormented by me, and the scene where Her Majesty would beg for forgiveness from me. Kangshi was intoxicated. At 8 in the morning, everyone walked into the martial arts arena one after another. The south side was on the left, and the north side was on the right. There was a huge martial arts arena in the middle. Meanwhile, on the high platform directly opposite them, that was the grandstand for the Empress. Slightly below them was the winner's grandstand, and it was clear that there was a difference in status. On the other hand, Jingshan didn't mind at all. After all, this was the truth. Below the two of them were the people from the aristocratic families of both sides. Dongfang Yuaner, who rarely appeared on the stage, appeared on the stage. Looking at the number of people, the north side had the advantage. After all, a family head of an aristocratic family had died last night, and furthermore the family head did not manage to find any ancient godly item, and thus the family head of the south side should be eliminated. Although the distance between the north and the south side was very far, the cursing did not stop at all. This doesn't look like a martial arts competition at all, this is clearly a gathering of hoodlums. Jingshan sat down and did not say anything. This kind of situation naturally has to be suppressed by your wife, and Kangshi really wants to help the Empress vent her anger by killing a few people to vent his anger. The people from the aristocratic families of the north had an appearance of watching a good show. The uglier the Empress is, the more advantageous it is for them. Donghuang Baiji, who had not made a move the entire time, suddenly stood up. In actuality, she was still angry, but now was not the time to be angry. All of you, quiet down, I have a few things to announce. Donghuang Baiji didn't open her mouth to scold anyone, rather she wanted to announce a few things. The family heads of the south gave face to Donghuang Baiji, and all of them stopped their scolding. However, some of the old foxes from the north were still speaking in a low voice. They didn't put the Empress in their eyes at all. In their hearts, they were thinking, is the Empress going to start a massacre? She is a female bodhisattva who saves people from suffering, and back then she even went to the south to save people. Donghuang Baiji didn't pay attention to those people from the north and continued, I have been in charge of the north for several years and I have a daughter, the daughter's name is Donghuang Li. Along with Donghuang Baiji stopping speaking, little Ali's figure walked towards her mother and stood beside her mother. This was the first time that Donghuang Baiji announced Donghuang Li's identity to the outside world, and also admitted that she had already been a mother for several years. Rumors are just rumors, but now that I have seen it with my own eyes and heard it with my own eyes, everyone was extremely shocked. I didn't expect that the Empress really has a daughter, and from the looks of it, the Empress should already be 3 to 4 years old, right? I didn't expect that the Empress has already been taken advantage of by someone for so many years. Everyone thought that the Empress's daughter was the symbol of purity, disappointment. Yi Xiao and the others from the aristocratic families of the north revealed a sneer on their faces. For the Empress to choose this kind of time to announce this kind of thing, isn't she shooting herself in the foot? This will only anger all of the powers in the north more and more. Donghuang Li appeared very polite as she shouted out, Hello everyone, my name is Donghuang Li. Everyone became deathly silent. This caused Donghuang Li to feel a bit hurt. It seems like I am not liked by everyone. Donghuang Baiji rubbed onto her daughter's head. One needs to experience the joys and sorrows of life to grow up. Next is my good sister, Xianxia. Xianxia, who was standing at the back, had a startled look on her face. Why is Baiji asking me to go out as well? Yihua laughed. Empress, you are preparing to introduce your entire family to the world. But Xianxia was a bit embarrassed. After all, I am holding onto a big belly. Alright, what are you afraid of? Just treat it as you pulling hatred towards Baiji. Yihua retracted his smile and said faintly. The reason why Donghuang Baiji is doing this is to anger those who are preparing to rebel against her, or those who are wavering. Xianxia rolled her eyes at Yihua, then closed her eyes and said, Kiss me, then I will have the guts to walk out. This little woman, I am becoming more and more fond of her. Yihua stretched out his hand and lifted Xianxia's chin, then lightly kissed her. Alright, now that you have received my kiss, hurry up and go. Look at how smug you are. Xianxia laughed helplessly. Soon after, her expression tensed up as she walked out from the back of the stage. Chapter 537. He instantly thought of the Empress saving the South that time. Wasn't there a heroine by his side? Could it be her? Why is she still pregnant? From the looks of it, she is going to give birth soon. In the South, Cloud sect Master Wu Hao still remembered Xianxia. That heroine saved his life that day. I had always wanted to repay Xianxia, but I really couldn't think of how to repay Xianxia. Originally, I wanted to repay Xianxia with my body, but when I saw Xianxia walking out with a big belly, why do I feel so much pain in my heart, as if someone stabbed me a few times? Qin Xuanzong, who was in the north, also felt the same way. He stared blankly at Xianxia, who walked out. I haven't seen her for a few months and her belly is already so big. I'm angry. I'm so angry. Xianxia swept her gaze across everyone. She wasn't weak at all. Xianxia was a woman who had seen the world. When she was in Blue Blaze Planet, the Federation's president had sent out a powerful army, but they were still trampled by her man, and in the end they ran away with their tails between their legs. But right now all of this was nothing at all. It was nothing to be afraid of. Just that, Donghuang Baiji's following words shocked everyone, to the point that their jaws almost dislocated. Donghuang Baiji could be seen holding onto Xianxia's hand and saying faintly, Not only are we good sisters, we also have the same husband. The entire place became deathly silent. The Empress and this extremely beautiful woman are serving the same husband. How is this possible? Just hugging one of them is already a great merit, let alone two. Furthermore, both of these women are going to give birth to that man's child. This should be the first time Xianxia saw Xianxia, and he was deeply attracted by Xianxia's beauty. These two women are simply incomparable, if it's possible. Although Xianxia had extinguished the lamp, it didn't stop him from fantasizing about all kinds of things. Hearing this, Jingshan was very calm. He already knew about it. However, all of the aristocratic families were stupefied. They really didn't expect that the Empress would actually be willing to serve the same husband with another woman. After all, the Empress's identity is very noble. How is it possible for her to do this? Everyone felt deeply disappointed, and the Empress's position in their hearts plummeted. The few people from the northern aristocratic families were incomparably happy. The Empress was simply digging her own grave by doing this, digging a hole to bury herself. The sect leader of the Cloud sect, Wu Hao, was in complete disbelief. He clasped a hand over his forehead. The heroine was actually serving the same man as the Empress? Heavens! Just what kind of man is he to actually be this lucky to be able to obtain their favor? This is too fake. As for Qin Xuanzong, he felt unwell all over. I didn't expect that Long Outyin not only harmed Xianxia, he even harmed the Empress. How is this possible? With Long Outyin's foolish appearance, how could he obtain the Empress's favor? Who are you trying to fool? In any case, Qin Xuanzong, refuse to believe that all of this is fake. All of it is fake. Xianxia is mine, Donghuang Baiji continued. Next, let's welcome my husband Yihua. Yihua, who was standing behind the platform, was currently doing his hair. A mirror appeared in front of Yihua's eyes, and Yihua wiped some hair wax onto his head. Then he carefully took care of it, making sure that when a gust of wind blew past, the hairstyle would not change. Hearing his beloved wife's shout, Yihua was currently considering what steps he should use to walk out of the room. Recently he had seen a few sets of footwork that were not bad. All of them had their own background music and they walked with the wind. However, that kind of footwork was not suitable for the main body. It was too frivolous. The main body walked the path of steady footwork. Forget it, I'll just do it the same way as before. Yihua's expression tensed up. He took out the mirror once again and took a look at it, making sure that his hairstyle was not messed up. Yihua could be seen walking out of the room with steady footwork. His pair of eyes were very deep, causing others to not dare to look at him directly. Could this be the legendary death gaze? That face that seemed as if it was carved by a knife, that tall nose bridge, those sharp eyebrows, those sharp eyes, and that tall and straight body that seemed to be able to hold up the heavens, as expected of a real man. Furthermore, a faint aura was being emitted out from his body. Although it wasn't dense, it caused others to not dare to have any strange thoughts. Just by standing there, I can already feel that they are quite compatible. How can the appearance of this family of four be so high? Looking at the man who suddenly appeared, Wu Hao immediately felt a sense of inferiority. That man's appearance is able to crush me, and that calm temperament of his is even more so. Why is there such a perfect man, to the point where I am unable to have any thoughts of fighting over him? Meanwhile, Qin Xuanzong was dumbstruck. When did Long Outyen become like this? He even has a name now. F*ck, this damned Long Outyen is indeed cunning. Do you think that I, the Demon Emperor, would not recognize you just because you changed your appearance and name? You actually turned into such a beautiful man, and your skin is even better than mine. No wonder you were able to subdue the Empress and Xianxia Long Outyen. You are simply fucking shameless. I, the Demon Emperor, will definitely expose your true appearance and let Xianxia see your true appearance. Wow, the Empress's husband is so handsome. That's right, metallographic, he is like a tiger and a dragon. A pear blossom suppresses a begonia, a jade tree that surpasses Pan, and no wonder the Empress and Xianxia would fall in love with him. If it was me, I would also say the same thing. What a perfect man. Jingshan swallowed his saliva. Should I salute? Forget it. If I were to salute, I reckon that my head would be removed from my body. His honor still likes to be like this, he is so awesome. Meanwhile, when Ying Kangshi saw Yihua, he clenched his teeth tightly. This is the demon who snatched away my fiancée and killed a lot of people from Ying family. I will definitely take revenge for this demon. When the time comes, I will snatch away my fiancée. Even if she had given birth to a child before, I wouldn't mind at all. In actuality, Yihua really wanted to say a few words such as, "Do you all want to die? To even dare to touch my woman with just a snap of my fingers, I will turn all of you into ashes." However, this time, this is Donghuang Baiji's home ground, and I am only here to accompany her. It is fine for me to just watch my wife act cool. I don't want to snatch away my wife's limelight. From the looks of it, this personality of mine has also been learned by them. I like to create big scenes. However, this scene is still considered big. Although the scene isn't big, Yihua still admired everyone's gazes, which were filled with astonishment and puzzlement. When the martial arts competition ends, you all will know what is called cruelty. I didn't expect that Her Majesty and heroine Xianxia would be serving the same husband. I don't know why, but my heart is in so much pain. Xianba said while holding onto his chest. Qi Shuwen looked at Yihua and felt that he had seen Yihua before, but he was unable to remember where he had seen Yihua before. However, to be able to have a woman like Yihua's strength is definitely not ordinary. Chapter 538. Xianba suddenly revealed a yearning expression. He clenched his fists tightly and whispered, "That's right. I have to work hard in my cultivation so that I can become a man like him in the future." Some of the southern clan leaders or the newly established clan leaders all had fiery gazes. This was a real man. He had women like the Empress and heroine, and they were even willing to give birth to his children. Thinking about that exciting process, it was definitely a man's ultimate dream. In order to achieve such an ultimate dream, we should also cultivate hard and strive to achieve our goal as soon as possible. If Yihua, who was standing on the spectator stand, were to know what these people were thinking, he would definitely strike them down mercilessly. I'm afraid you won't be able to cultivate my strength in this lifetime. Other than envy and despair, you will have nothing left. Also, these two women only moved their mouths and then went to bed with me. This has absolutely nothing to do with strength. Yihua didn't say these words out loud. However, on the day that the martial arts competition ended, I will be able to say it out loud. That day will be the day that I, the Supreme Overlord, and my wives will go crazy. I am truly looking forward to it. The dense smell of blood was gradually approaching, and a trace of a smile appeared on the corner of Yihua's mouth. However, no one noticed that Yihua was smiling. Isn't this man the boss of Long and City's leisure bar? A certain family head in the south seemed to have thought of something and asked, The Empress of the North is actually married to the boss of a bar. This was too nonsensical. The audience immediately went into an uproar, and intense discussions broke out. But I heard that the owner of this bar is very mysterious. That's right. I heard that the terrifying Black Robe once went to that bar. There's such a thing? A few months ago, during the ancient godly equipment snatching battle, that black-robed man suppressed everyone and even hugged Yun sect master, Sun Fang. I don't know what happened to the southern girl, Sun Fang. Perhaps she has already been eaten by that terrifying Black Robe. That's right, even if he didn't get eaten he would definitely be tortured by the Black Robe, so cruel. Right now Death Mage really wanted to come out and explain. Just who the F***ck is this scary? It is obviously this ugly woman who bullies people just because she has a piece of meat on her body, and I, the dignified Black Robe, have to mop the floor at home every day and become a slave. You guys tell me? Just who is the one who is abusing who? What do you think is the relationship between this man and Black Robe? Friends? Superior and subordinate? Master and servant? Such discussions immediately began. It was impossible for them to be friends. How could they be friends? Such a terrifying existence did not need friends at all. If they weren't superior and subordinate, then they were master and servant. However, everyone thought that this man had curried favor with Black Robe, and that was how he had obtained the appreciation of the Empress and the heroine. That made sense. Yihua didn't say anything after hearing what Yihua said. You all don't even know who my subordinates are. If I were to allow them to appear one by one, you all would completely lose your confidence and become ants under the heavens. Yihua wouldn't sit on the main seat. After all, she was his wife, and letting his wife act cool was what a man should do. Yihua and Xianxia sat behind Donghuang Baiji. Yihua was still sitting in his usual posture. The sitting posture of the big boss. Then he took out a cigarette and lit it up. The crisp sound of a lighter resounded throughout the venue. Everyone looked at Yihua who was lighting up his cigarette. That slightly squinting eyes, that slowly exhaling smoke, why is it so imposing? This man is so handsome even when he is smoking. This man is simply invincible. To be able to blend the smoking posture into that sitting posture without any discomfort, I even feel that the scene is so beautiful. The cyan-colored smoke caused that man's face to become blurry, giving off an even more mysterious color. That deep gaze of his seems so melancholic. So smoking can be done like this. I have gained a lot of knowledge today. At this very moment, even those who don't smoke also wanted to smoke a cigarette. Then, a strange phenomenon was created. The entire martial arts stage was emitting out a cyan smoke. Everyone was holding onto a cigarette. It was such a spectacular scene. When Yihua saw this scene he couldn't help but laugh. These humans, they just love to follow the trend and create momentum. Meanwhile, Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji had a helpless look on their faces. What can they do when they meet a smoking addict husband? It must be said that the current Yihua was very much like a leader. From the moment he walked out to the moment he sat down, he did not say a single word. Yet, he was able to drive the rhythm of the entire audience. I didn't waste my time for the past 5 years, and I didn't watch the movie, Calabash Brothers Saving Grandpa blindly. Martial arts competition start. Following Donghuang Baiji's shout, Voidless Realms Yuquan appeared in the air. This competition will be conducted by drawing lots. It will be a confrontation between the north and south. Life and death are up to the heavens. Of course you can also admit defeat. Yuquan's words startled everyone. Life and death were up to the heavens. Shouldn't he stop there? This is the normal routine. Why would Voidless Realms set such a rule this time? Everyone looked very serious. A confrontation between the north and the south? He could die. And he could even admit defeat. Wasn't this reminding everyone that admitting defeat was extremely shameful? After all, it was a battle between the north and the south. If they admitted defeat, what would happen after the competition? If he went out, he wouldn't even be able to raise his head. All the clan heads in the north looked towards the Empress on the high platform. How scheming. He wanted to kill with a borrowed knife and use the southerners to consolidate his own strength. We have truly underestimated this Empress. The aristocratic families in the north had grave expressions on their faces. This move of the Empress caught them unprepared. There are at least 1,000+ people on the scene. If this competition continues, wouldn't there be only half of them left? If there were a few more rounds, wouldn't there be no more? Could it be that the Empress and Ying family are planning to do a big reshuffle? Are they planning to make use of this competition? None of the people on the scene were fools. Even fools wouldn't be able to become a family head. They also realized this problem. If the Empress doesn't admit defeat, only one out of the two will be able to survive. If this continues, how many people will be able to walk out of this competition? Unless they admit defeat. Yihua was a bit surprised. I didn't expect that my woman would actually do such a thing. She never told me about this before. This is a bit formidable. Looking at the fight between the North and the South, and the fight was done openly, Yihua laughed lightly. My original goal has been achieved. Furthermore, it was achieved by my wife. This is very unexpected. Donghuang Baiji's way of doing things made Yihua feel very gratified. If they don't put you in their eyes, then let everyone else see it. The authority of the Empress is not to be touched by anyone. There will only be one result for those who touch it. Death. Yu Quan paused for a while, then continued, the number one in this competition. The number one will receive 100 longevity fruits. Number 2, 70, number 3, 50. Number 4 to number 10 will receive 1 participation prize. The audience went into an uproar once again. The number 1 actually received 100 longevity fruits. Furthermore, the number 2 and number 3 also received that many longevity fruits. Chapter 539. The family head's expression was very unsightly. In the past, they were only given a total of 100 fruits, and this time the champion would get a total of 100 fruits. If the Southerners were to take away the fruits, wouldn't that be forcing the Northerners to rebel? Just what is the Empress's intention? Such a reward made everyone's eyes become hot. Right now, I just want to get into the top 10, and it would be best if I can get into the top 3. With that many longevity fruits, I won't have to worry about my life anymore. Life is something that cannot be bought with anything, and now that it has appeared, how could anyone not be excited? Furthermore, the number of longevity fruits is so big, it is enough for me to live for a few lifetimes. Even if I have to fight to the death, I must get my hands on it. Donghuang Baiji's scheme made everyone realize that this martial arts competition was not simple. However, in order to dispel their worries, she used the huge amount of longevity fruits to tempt them. From the looks of it, the effect was achieved. This scheme is too deep. Yihua didn't expect that Baiji would have such a scheme, and he was very happy in his heart. In actuality, Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji weren't stupid. In front of Yihua, they chose to act like stupid women to satisfy Yihua's male mentality. Jingshan was also a bit surprised, but he thought that this was his honor's intention. He didn't have any doubts, and he didn't dare to have any doubts. The northern aristocratic families that were sitting below began discussing in low voices. This matter should be beneficial to us. Jianghu said in a low voice. 3 days later, we will unite everyone and overthrow the Empress's authority. Yi Shao nodded his head. That's right, the Empress's method will only anger the Northerners even more. But, you all didn't think of it, but didn't the Empress think of it? But why did she insist on going her own way? Chui said gravely. Duanho laughed lightly, then said in a low voice, the Empress wants to borrow the hands of the South to get rid of some of the northern powers that are against her. This way she will be able to reduce the pressure on the North, and our coercion will not be that threatening. After hearing that, Yi Shao and Jiang Yuanzhou nodded their heads. What the Empress said makes sense. Meanwhile, Chuhi was very vexed. I don't want to participate in this at all. I feel that this matter is not that simple. On the other side, Qi Shuwen and Xanba were also discussing. Brother Qi, the number 1 position is obviously from those aristocratic families. The number 1 position is all decided internally. Xanba shook his head. It's basically impossible for those aristocratic families to get the number 1 position. The difference in strength is right here. Qi Shuwen felt that Xanba was right. How could they possibly get the first place? Xanba, don't be discouraged. Yu Quan shouted out once again. Voidless Realm's Imperial Guards could be seen carrying all kinds of weapons onto the stage one after another. This kind of action caused those people who were hoping to get lucky to be angered badly. Because just a moment ago they were still thinking of getting their hands on weapons, and right now this path was immediately blocked off. This is too ruthless. This is simply not giving anyone a way out. Some of the minor family heads immediately started cheering. This is a typical counterattack. Perhaps we might even be able to snatch the first place. Yihua sat at the back and smoked a cigarette. Seems like Baiji doesn't need me to lead her astray at all. Daddy hug. Dong Huangli stood at the side and stretched out her hands, looking extremely adorable. Yihua flicked away the cigarette, then carried his daughter. Ali, how about we guess the winner and loser? Sure, if Ali wins, Daddy wants to accompany Ali to sleep. Sure, no problem. Yihua agreed. In any case, they aren't allowed to touch each other, and if I sleep together with them, I might as well accompany my daughter. Both Qingya and Donghuang Baiji heard what Yihua said. Their daughter is actually openly trying to snatch her husband. This is a bit interesting. On the stage, Yuquan waved the wooden staff in his hand, and a huge lump of spiritual energy gathered at the center of the stage. Yuquan stretched out his palm and shouted out lightly. The huge lump of white spiritual energy turned into pieces of white tokens and flew into everyone's hands. Other than the two people on the main stage, everyone else got their tokens. Everyone took in a breath of cold air. This old man's spirit control is so strong as expected of someone from Voidless Realm. Qi Shuwen looked at the white token in his hand. In the blink of an eye, the white token disappeared, and a number appeared on his hand. Number 1. Qi Shuwen was a bit stupefied. There are so many people and yet I actually got number 1. Yuquan said faintly, I believe that everyone has already seen the number on your hand. The martial arts competition has officially started. First match. Number 1 against number 2. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.